Okay, what I'm going to do is give you some suggestions on how to use a DR accessories, bucket accessories for your Harbor Freight trencher. One thing I want you to note is that when you look at the Harbor Freight bucket, between the connection of the two, where it connects to the arm, is 7 inches centered. Let me see if I can get that for you. It's 7 inches centered. And here's the tooth that they have that I've already converted over. But as you can see, this is 7 inches too. And then on the 9-inch bucket, this too is 7 inches centered. Okay? So the only thing that we have to change is the distance between these two points have to be increased. So what I did is I made a template out of a piece of plywood, very simply. It's about 4 and 3/8 inches. As you can see, it fits rather tightly into the bucket for the Harbor Freight. Okay, and as you can see, with this being changed, it now fits in here also. But on the 9-inch bucket, it won't fit, as you can see. Okay, what you do on the tooth, on the single one, because it's just on this bracket here, what I did is that here's where the old one was, and as you can see, they put it on the end and welded it on the side, but there was still a little bit of room left. So what I did is I only did it on one side. Leave the side that has the hole in it, because your cotter pin will go through there later and it'll match up perfectly and fit. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut this down. This is where it comes in, where the pin comes through and then hits on this surface here. So what I did is I just took and cut it off. You might be able to still see. What I did is I just cut this off with a Sawzall, cut it right down, right along the seam. Okay, and then what I did is I moved it over to the edge, and then I welded it on the inside, and then I welded it on the outside. Okay, not my prettiest weld, but it works. I did it actually with a 170 Harbor Freight welder. Okay, and it worked very well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one over. I have a 16-inch bucket. And the only difference between the 16-inch bucket and the 9 and the tooth is that it has a gusset that runs next to the bushings. Okay, and you just have to cut it off. It takes a little bit more time. I cut it off with an air die grinder and cut it off, and then I re-welded it back on. And the 16-inch bucket works well. You can see that in my previous video. But I'll be cutting this off, be cutting this side, because remember, we don't want to cut the one off with the hole in it, because that's where the cotter pin will go through. And what I'm going to do is I'll be cutting this off, and you're only going to move it over, and it's probably less than 1/4 inch. It's not very much at all, so it doesn't really change the operation of the bucket, even though it's skewed over by, no, it's got to be, give you an idea, it's, let me see, there you go. Put this up here. I say it's probably like 1/4 inch. It's about 1/4 inch. This is like 3/16, I believe, and a little bit more. It'd be 1/4 inch. And it works nicely. Very simple to do, and it gives you more options with your Harbor Freight trencher they only offer a replacement 13-inch bucket. So now I have a 16, a 13, a 9, and the tooth. And the tooth works very well for the removal of stumps. I had some old abandoned wires that I had running in the backyard, and I was able just to go down and then just kind of pull the stuff up, and I was able to clean it all up without any problems whatsoever. So it gives you a lot more options with the Harbor Freight trencher than just the one single 13-inch bucket, which works very well, by the way. The 9-inch is going to be real nice to do close-in trenching, like if you wanted to put a small water line, electric line or something, which I'm going to be doing. So it just gives you more options, and instead of digging a 13-inch hole, you only have to do a 9-inch, and it goes faster, and instead of wasting all the time, making a larger hole. So there you have it. I'll be converting that one over today. It takes about an hour cutting it with a Sawzall. I just put I'm cutting my third bucket with the same blade. There's the blade on the Sawzall. I've cut all of them off, and what it is that they're all different distances. So it only affects. You could see it affects 3 different places on the blade because I've done 3 of them so far. And I welded it all together with the 170 welder. I like using the wire feed. I mean, I've got a TIG welder and I got plasma and all kinds of stuff, but it is so fast with that welder. I was just going to use it to take and put a start on it so that I could get it all lined up. Oh, and by the way, one other tip, and it works really, really slick, and that's why I had the piece of wood. What you do is after you cut it, take the piece of wood, put it in there, and then clamp it to the side that's being held on, and then clamp it all to it, and it lines everything up perfectly. So you don't have to sit there and mess around with trying to put all kinds of clamps on it and that. You just clamp it between the two, like this. Put your clamps on. You just put your clamps on the side that's staying attached, which is this side. You put a couple clamps on there, and I just used some regular wood clamps, just some, simple clamps. I placed them on here like that, and then tighten it up, and then I put a couple spot welds on just to get it started. Then I got a little square that I have, put the square on there, made sure everything was squared up, and then I just tapped it over till it became all nice and straight and level and swayed perfectly, and finished welding it, and they've held up so far. So, all right, catch me in some other videos because I'll keep doing them as I go along.